Hi everyone, Coach Alexa here. I've been reading a great book recently about some of the dangers of the kind of faddy style of nutrition and eating advice that we often get online at the moment. Hashtags, inspiring stories, perhaps individual stories of how somebody's got performance success or amazing skin or whatever it is from excluding certain food groups or only eating in certain ways. And there are a number of kind of interesting dangers in that. I see, I guess, kind of the lesser end of the scale with runners that do, are tempted by those, kind of easy clickbaity headlines of, oh, eat this food or don't eat that food, and that will somehow, make your performance magically better. So as a running coach, I'm also qualified to give some broad nutritional advice for running with sport. But let's bear in mind the fact that the only people that are actually allowed and qualified and regulated to give people nutrition advice are dietitians. So nutritionist in the UK isn't a particularly well-defined term. It's not properly kind of certified and managed. It's not got a certified governing body that is externally managed for quality, and any other sort of nutrition advisor or anything like that is a very kind of woolly term with really quite low standards of the education that you need to attain them. So if you're looking for some really good help and support on this, then getting in touch with a dietitian is absolutely the place to start. But it's a good thing to think about that generally a more moderate diet. My grandmother, bless her, used to say, a little bit of what you fancy does you good. And I am a true believer that excluding things completely from our diets is often not a brilliant strategy. We don't have to be really kind of narrow focused on what we're eating. There are no such thing as bad foods. There are some foods that you probably shouldn't eat every day, like, I don't know, chocolate and bacon. But, it doesn't mean you can never eat any of them. So there are lots of reasons why people make different choices around food. Some of it might be for health, performance, for ethical reasons. But wherever we stand on all of those, I really dislike anything being labelled as a food you can never eat. So have a little bit of a think if you're interested in find out more. The book is called Orthorexia. So this growing what is on the verge potentially of being classified as an eating disorder when you're removing more and more food groups and types of food from your diet in the pursuit of being perfect or clean or super healthy or super fit. A great place to go for advice is the author of that book, and she's written a few others as well, does a great podcast called Train Brave, a huge number of resources on her website, brilliant social media posts, and that is a dietitian called Irini McGregor. So this is the book that I often reference people to for running, some great ideas about the nutrients that we need, what we need more of, so particularly vitamins and minerals, for example, that we need even more of when we're training than when we're just going about our day-to-day lives, and some fantastic practical advice on recipes and things that we can use for fueling. So as with everything in life, and I know I've done a video on broadly, following fads versus following science, I think it really tugs on our heartstrings, doesn't it, to have personal stories, be it a friend or somebody at your running club or somebody that you follow and respect online who said, well, for me, this was amazing and it changed my skin and it did all this and it did all that. And two things there, I guess. One, we are all different and we are all experiments of one. So something that might have worked for one person may not work for anyone else, let alone you. And two, there's a reason why in sort of science we do controlled trials, because what they do is to kind of tease out other things that could have impacted the outcome for somebody that wasn't actually the change they thought it would be. So it might be, for example, that cutting out carbohydrates had this amazing impact on this one individual, fantastic news for them. But actually, was that because when they cut out the carbohydrates, they suddenly were eating next to no processed food? They were doing all of their own cooking. And it's more likely the fact that they were doing all of their own cooking and not eating as much processed food that was going to have a much bigger impact than actually cutting out carbohydrate. So that's just an example. Do your own research, follow up some great and knowledgeable sources of information, and try where you can to follow the science as opposed to individual amazing stories, no matter how appealing they might be. I hope that's useful.